It's a pleasure for me to welcome you to this info session for the first call for the business plan 23 to 25 for the academy call and the RIS education call. My name is Martin Wendel, and I'm the academy director at EIT Urban Mobility. So what we'll do today is to go through the call specific requirements. It's really important that you listen carefully and pay attention to details. It's always very sad when we have to can't accept a good proposal because there are some formal requirements that are not correct. And also it's very important that you, as much as possible, understand what we look for. So there is a good match between the proposals and the need we have within the academy and for RIS education. So once again, welcome. And by the end, we will have a Q&A session. So please write or state your questions in the Q&A, not in the chat. And we will follow up all these questions by the end. So with that, I would like to give over to my colleague, Daniela.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniela. I'm the Academy Program Manager, and I'll start to provide you a bit of background on the call design process and call focus. So we start with the Academy call. There's two separate calls, one for the Academy, one for RIS education. The design and focus process was the same for both calls. So you can see here a little bit of background. So we focused on a process that was transparent, inclusive, and based on our ambition to be clearer, more inclusive, and to provide more precision in the way we do our calls. So we started by creating a website, the EIT-urbanmobility.academy that you see there, where we sought input from our partners, but also non-partners, on what they saw as the most pressing education needs and issues in urban mobility. So based on the feedback that we received in that consultation process, we then kind of narrowed down those issues and needs, and we asked our partners and non-partners again to provide us with ideas on possible working solutions for those, where we see that those possible high-level workable solutions fit what is our education objectives and strategy as per the EIT Mobility strategic agenda, but also our internal academy strategic process. We then moved on to include those items in the call. So this was part of the process that we followed, which was the same that we followed last year. And we took into consideration also the experience from previous calls. So what worked, what didn't work, previous items that we could not find high-level workable solutions for those. In that case, we did not include them in this year's call. So this is the process we followed, and also to mention that only 30% of the academy budget is allocated to the calls. The majority of our budget is dedicated to our operational activities in the master school, the doctoral training network, but also the content sub. So we channel those through the partners that also that actually are part of the agreements in the master school and the doctoral training network. This provides you with a visualized way of what I've just said. So we do have our operations in the academy that are non-call, not part of the call. And then we needed constantly to renew and improve in certain areas. We need new formats, new business models, new content, and we use the call to get those. So we use the call to get those, to test new ideas. So we experiment. Those ideas need to leverage our EIT funding. They need to provide lasting effect. If they work, we may scale them and repeat them in the future. If they do not work, we do not repeat them. we move on to the main features of the Academy call. That you will be able to find them in the call document as well. So as you know, the call opened last week on the 28th of April, and it will close on the 28th of June. We'll run it through. We have another session tomorrow to debrief on the timeline for the evaluation, but also on the evaluation process. But just to mention that the evaluation will be carried out during the month of July, and we expect to communicate the results at the beginning of September. So those proposals that are conditionally approved can address the conditions during the month of September. The call includes Master School, Doctoral Training Network, and Competence Hub. So you'll see that there are activity types in all those three segments included in the call, and we come to that later. And although we do have a business plan for 3 years, so 2023 to 2025, we will only accept proposals, and we will only approve proposals for 12 months. However, if you want to continue in the following years, you need to express that in your proposal, and you need to provide a high-level plan for that to include deliverables, KPIs, and a budget as well. The continuation, of course, will be assessed based on this high-level plan that you present, but also based on the results achieved in 2023. Including those financial sustainability targets, if required, as per your activity type that you apply for. We have a budget allocated to the Academy call of 1.5 million, and I must just give the disclaimer that this is the first Academy call for Business Plan 23-25. So this is not the total budget for the 3 years. Our ambition is to launch 2 calls per year. For the duration of that period. So 1.5 million is only for this specific call. And we expect to have 8 to 12 proposals approved via this call, and that's split between Master School, Doctoral Training Network, and Competence Hub. We'll come to that later. There's a minimum co-funding required of 15% per proposal. I have to say that the co-funding will be increasing in the following year. So the 15% corresponds to 2023 only. If you wish to continue in the next years and you present a high-level plan for that, you need to match your co-funding rate according to what is the minimum requirements for those years. You can find that information in the call as well. It would be 20% in 24 and 25% in 25. In terms of financial sustainability, we'll also provide more details later in the session. There are specific requirements on a selection of activity topics, mostly within the Competence Hub. There are a few in the Master School as well, but those are limited, but we'll come to that later. And then, as per usual, there's specifically requirements in terms of the consortium composition. We need to have a minimum of 2 partners from 2 different countries. For the Academy call, for the RIS as well, of course, when it comes to RIS, you need to have a minimum of 1 partner from a RIS country. And then, again, the evaluation criteria, which we'll cover later, but I'll include it there, the 4 topics towards which your proposal will be assessed. And that's the strategic fit, the excellence and novelty of the proposal, the impact, social, economic, financial, and sustainability impact, and the quality and efficiency of the implementation. This covers what we just mentioned generally, but per segment. So you'll see that in the Master School, we have 4 activity topics included in the call, 2 specific for the Doctoral Training Network and 5 for the Competence Hub. You'll see the budget split for those 3 segments in terms of the total budget of the call. The financial sustainability requirements, so as mentioned, limited for the Master School, none for the Doctoral Training Network, and specific and considerable financial sustainability contributions for the Competence Hub. The co-funding rate is the same for all the segments. All the activities need to have a scale-up potential, and the proposals that we expect to select per segment there. With this said, I'll pass on to Joel Franklin, the head of the Master School, who will present the Master School and the activity types we require.
Hello, good afternoon. Nice to see you. I'm glad you all can take the time to join us. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the Master School. And as Daniela said, this is an area where we have our mainstream activities, but we've identified a number of areas where we would like to call for some contributions outside of the mainstream activities that we think will be complementary and will help us to grow the Master School. But I want to start first, if we can advance forward to the next slide, giving a bit of a background on, sorry, I don't see the slides. There we go. Yeah, a bit of a background on the Master School itself. What we really aim for with the Master School is to educate a new generation of urban mobility professionals that are just coming out of their under university education, so they're just starting their careers really once they finish with us. But we characterize those in certain ways. So this is what we're aiming for. We're trying to implement the EIT urban mobility vision of a human-centered approach to urban mobility. So first and foremost, this is a very important focus of what we mean by urban mobility. We also want to provide industry technical competencies. So the profiles that we develop will be matched toward what we think industry needs. We want to provide an innovation and entrepreneurship minor that's essential to helping them to be more effective in their careers. And we also want to grow new cross-cutting professional identities. So we don't want to be tied to the traditional kinds of backgrounds that have been dominant in urban mobility. In practicing the program, we have a very learning by doing approach. We want to apply cutting-edge science, so we're using we're partnering with the best universities that we can find, and we want to take an international and comparative perspective. So it's important that we're not just focusing on one location, that we're bringing students from different backgrounds, we're bringing them to different countries around Europe, and exposes them to a lot of different environments. And then we also integrate the private sector and public sector perspectives, which are very important in the context of urban mobility. Next slide, please. Our partners so far in the programs that we're delivering are Aalto University, KTH, my own university in Stockholm, Politecnico in Milan, the University of Tartu in Estonia, the Eindhoven University of Technology in the Netherlands, and UPC in Barcelona. And we have others that we'd like to get involved very, very soon as well. Next slide, please. The way the Master School works is that students spend 1 year each at 2 different universities, and they get a dual degree in the end. And during the course of that, they have both major in an urban mobility technical area, and they are exposed to, they develop innovation and entrepreneurship skills in the minor. We also have a 2-week summer school, and that's one of the areas where we use this call for proposals to get contributions from others. So I'll come back to that in just a minute. At the end of their degree, they get also an EIT label certificate to testify to their new skills. Next slide, please. The 2 programs we have are, first of all, Sustainable Urban Mobility Transitions, which is a little bit a combination of urban planning and civil engineering, but has a focus on transforming urban mobility systems and all the different actors involved and what kinds of processes are required. Next slide, please. The other program that we more recently started is Smart Mobility Data Science and Analytics. So this is really exploiting new developments in AI and big data in order to solve problems in ways we haven't previously been able to. So it's, again, integrating different disciplines from traditional operations to of transportation operations to data science and to computer science. Next slide. We have some concepts for future programs, but these are under discussion, and so it's just to see how quickly we'll be able to grow the Master School. Next slide, please. Moving on now to the call itself, we have 4 areas that we would like to be opening, like to receive applications. First of all, it's the summer schools themselves. So these are really a keystone activity of the student journey through our master programs. Between the first year and the second year, they spend 2 weeks, 1 week each in 2 different cities. And so we're calling for proposals from partners that would host in 2 different locations. It's really an intensive entrepreneurial sprint, so it's a quick process of exploring a problem area, generating solutions, and then pitching those solutions to a jury. and it's welcoming not just our own master school students, but also others externally. So that's critical to our, for example, to our financial sustainability. So in this case, it's not written here, but there's an expectation that that through the revenues of external participants, you could generate around at least 4,000 euro of revenue to each master school. So we expect that we would be opening up 2 to 3 master schools in order to provide for our students and for external participants. We'll move on to the next one. Oh, sorry, the KPIs here, yeah, with the minimum of 20 completing the course activities and the minimum of 80 participating in the course activities as well. I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead here. Now we're on MSA 2, yes. Awareness raising is the second call area. Here our priority is to grow the reputation and the awareness of the master school, because we've grown a bit, but we're not growing fast enough. And so we're looking for ideas and people who can implement those ideas on how to raise the profile of our master school across Europe and around the world. So this is quite wide open to different kinds of potential solutions. We're looking for new ideas that you can propose. And some examples might be an online or blended course in the topic area, or an undergraduate focused summer school. So distinct from our master level summer schools, we could have another form of summer school that's geared toward a different level. And for this, we have the KPIs that we'd expect 20 and 80 participating respective participants, and of which 20 would actually complete it, and a large number of impressions that come out of it. Next slide, please. In the third area, we're looking for new techniques to actually put into practice in our master school programs themselves, as well as to help us to develop new master programs in other areas that we're not working in yet. So the focus here is on the kind of things that EIT is especially asking us to do, and that we think are important anyway: challenge-driven education, learning by doing, inter and transdisciplinary education, living labs, knowledge triangle integration. So new ways of being better at these things. They can be tested in your own at your own partner, your own universities or your own environments, and then we integrate that later on into our master programs or into a future master program. So the idea here is to generate some new methodologies and test them and get some feedback and lessons around them to implement. So here we have 50 that we would expect to be participating in those courses and activities, at least 10 of which will be completing, and we need at least 1 new course for each proposal to actually be developed. And the last call item that we're opening is on a challenge student competition. This is again focused on awareness raising, but it's more specific than MSA 2, in that we're looking for a specific kind of activity where we have a pan-European student competition on some urban mobility related topic. So the idea is to address a critical urban mobility related challenge, generate significant publicity for EIT urban mobility and for the master school specifically, and engage interest from students. We would also like to create some tangible ideas that can actually be put into practice as being the best ideas of this competition. And here you have the KPIs for this activity for 2023. Minimum 20 completing the course. We want company involvement in this. 100 participating from the beginning, and then we have a reach of 4,000 annual impressions for the EIT urban mobility content. I think we also have financial sustainability for prizes for the competition. What we'd like is that the companies involved would contribute something to the competitions. So those are the calls that we have. Thank you for your time. If you have questions, please use the Q&A to pose those, and we'll get back to them.
So maybe I will just jump in. Thank you very much, Joel. Thanks, Martin and Daniela. My name is Benjamin Büttner. I'm heading the Doctoral Training Network, or in short, DTN. And I'm happy to have the opportunity to introduce the DTN to you, but also what we are looking for within the just published call. Just as a little introduction, what is the Doctoral Training Network? It's an EIT labeled doctoral program same as the master school, and we promote innovation and entrepreneurship. And this is based on the knowledge triangle. So we want to, and we are collaborating with businesses, with education and research. For that, we have strong links to industry partners, but also to cities and other mobility providers, in order that the PhD students also get in touch with the possible employers in the future. We are publishing 2 calls for applicants each year. We started this in 2020, and the next call will be published actually next week. So keep your eyes open. Beginning of next week, we will again publish a call for applicants. If you know PhD students which are enrolled in the EAT linked universities, we are very much looking forward to seeing their applications. We included in the doctoral training network an innovation and entrepreneurship curriculum in order to make the PhD students be prepared for future endeavors. The main idea is to create networking opportunities, not just within academia, but also with other partners. For that, we are also using the international placement. So the PhD students are getting paid staying abroad for 4 to 6 months. And this can also and should also be with non-academics, so cities, NGOs, industry partners. Everything is welcome as long as boosting their chances of finishing the PhD thesis. We have an annual forum. We started this 2 years ago. During COVID, we had the first annual forum as a virtual forum. Unfortunately, last year we were able to meet in Munich with the second annual forum. And next year we will be in, or this year, better to say, in November, we will be in Barcelona. Within the DTN, we also created the Elsevier Journal of Urban Mobility in a strong collaboration with the EAT Urban Mobility. This is a perfect outlet also for the PhD students in order to publish their research. Next slide, please. Here you can see some pictures from the second annual forum in Munich, which was held in the Munich Urban Collab. And you can see this was the group of PhD students, but also supervisors are warmly welcome to join here. This is the DTN community, but the DTN community is even bigger. So we have people from industry, from startups, which are also regular participants in our bi-weekly calls, which we organize. Then we have the DTN committee. These are the professors from 14 universities, which are linked to the doctoral training network. Then we have the core team, I would say, with Corinna. She is running the DTN office, Aaron Nichols, who is supporting me, and I'm heading this team. And obviously the main drivers and the main players in the DTN are our 55 doctoral candidates from 11 different universities, and EAT Urban Mobility is the umbrella. Next slide, please. Here you can see an overview of the Innovation and Entrepreneurship course program, where also, if you're interested, your proposal can come into play. We are still flexible of shifting some courses here and there. And if you have good proposals, we're happy to adapt this. You can see entrepreneurial thinking, innovation, business creation, and also elective courses play a major role in the course program. In total, these are 30 ECTS. The focus is very much on the so-called OLOs from EIT, so the overarching learning outcomes. Next slide, please. Just a little outlook for you. We are at the moment revising the Innovation and Entrepreneurship curriculum, which I just presented. We are planning the third annual forum in Barcelona, which will be linked also to the Tomorrow Mobility World Congress and the huge EAT Mobility dissemination activities in November. And we will do soon, we would like to integrate more non-academic partners we envisioned here for the City Club, but not just, but also industry partners, NGOs, everyone who would like to play a major role in the doctoral education of EAT urban mobility. Already mentioned that the 5th call for applicants will be launched next week. And this year, the first DTN graduates will finish, which is great news. And by this, we would then also like to create an alumni network in order to disseminate, in order to make them share experiences also with the newcomers within the DTN. Next slide, please. Okay. So concerning the call, why we are here, for this call, we have two proposals. First one is on teaching methodology with a knowledge triangle perspective. This is what I mentioned also at the beginning, something where we really like to strengthen also the involvement of non-academic partners. So this will be new initiatives regarding teaching methodologies, innovative teaching methodologies, and entrepreneurship, as well as the knowledge triangle has to play a big role here. We would also like to integrate this into our DTN innovation and entrepreneurship course package, which I've shown you, I think, in the second or third slide. Again, we have some flexibility here. If this remains unclear, you can always reach out to me and I can give you some more details. The teaching staff should come from both technology disciplines, but also from innovation and entrepreneurship, also from human sciences. And this should be implemented in the academic year of 24-25. So also for the long term. The KPIs for next year that we're looking for are at least 10 people completing this course. We would like to have 4 companies involved here and a minimum of 50 participating in the course activities. And the second and also last proposal for the DTN is one which focuses on startup activities. So where we can strengthen the encouragement and support which are given to our doctoral candidates that are interested in creating new ventures, creating ideally their own businesses, startups. Herefore, we are looking for courses, trainings, workshops, how they can bring their business ideas and kick off ventures. We are seeking for the support with developing skills to set up a startup and test business ideas. Again, as I mentioned before, networking plays a huge role here. So the idea is that we can link them with like-minded people, but also experienced entrepreneurs where they can learn a thing or two. And this should be implemented from 2023 onwards. And the KPIs are the same as before: 10 completing the course activities, 4 companies involved, and a minimum of 50 participating in the course. So thank you very much. As I mentioned before, do not hesitate to reach out to me.
Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Martin, Daniela, and Joel. So I'm Gautam. I'm the head of the Competence Hub. I'm happy to talk to you and to present you in a bit more detail the Competence Hub part of the call. Next slide. So maybe as a starters, just to give you a general overview of what the Competence Hub is. As you know, this is the professional learning component of the Academy. So what we really aim to do is to develop learning contents, courses, and programs for professionals that work within the urban mobility ecosystem. We do that in 3 different ways. What we call the Web TV, which is a YouTube channel that delivers very short learning videos on a variety of urban mobility subjects so that people can get quick answers to the question they ask themselves on a daily basis. And then, and these will be the 2 areas that the call will focus on. what we refer to as e-courses, that are mainly online courses that are delivered asynchronously so that people can take them whenever they want, and what we call, in opposition to the e-courses, the face-to-face trainings, which are really much more synchronous learning or blended learning courses. So in terms of what we're trying to achieve here, the Competence Hub is mainly two things. On the one side, as we already discussed, and as Martin already discussed, the urban mobility sector is overall undergoing a significant change. So this is leading to new opportunities, new jobs, and new ways to do things and to move people around the city. So we really want to fill in that knowledge gap to empower both the public and the private sector to develop these new capabilities, so capacity building, but also because we need to make sure that all of this happens in a more sustainable way, there is also a skill development and, let's say, leadership component to the courses that we want to develop, which is strong. So for us, it's really looking at urban mobility from a systemic and overall point of view, not just focusing on, you know, a specific area, a specific sector, a specific technology. We want to cover the whole spectrum. We want courses that will promote and strengthen the behavioral change that we all want to happen in the urban mobility sector. And in the same way as the Master School and the DTN, we want to focus on courses that are innovative and ideally that sort of in some way are entrepreneurial, but this is a very open interpretation of entrepreneurship. In terms of audiences, in our case, we target both courses that are open and that target individuals, so open courses that people can register to in different modalities, but also we're open to have courses and proposals that target what we call in-company courses or corporate courses, where we really aim to train a group of people within an organization or within a specific community. So I'll go a bit deeper into the call now and look at the different activities that we want to focus on. Next slide. But of course, if you have any overall questions, we can come back to that. So the first activity is really on what we call synchronous or face-to-face courses. As I said, the idea here is to focus on any kind of course which has a primary, let's say, synchronous learning methodology. This can be on site in a classroom, more traditional, or online through a webinar. But ideally, what we want is to look at these blended, new, more innovative types of learning courses, which sort of mix and make the most of all these learning methodologies. Doing asynchronous learning can allow scalability, flexibility. People can take the courses whenever they want. Online synchronous learning allows people to still have some level of flexibility, but yet more interactive sessions with experts and groups being able to interact with other. And of course, if you do them on site, then you need to get everybody at one specific place. But then, of course, the quality of the learning is very different. You can do visits, you can do workshops, you can have people work together for a specific project. So really what we're looking at is courses that blend all of these different learning models and make the most of them. And in this case, with a strong revenue potential. So the courses that are able to generate revenue, as Martin explained earlier, the idea is for us to significantly fund let's say the development and design costs of the course, especially through the first year, but then the funding would decrease or even stop, and the course would be continued and be viable from year 2 onwards. So this is one type of activity. Next slide, please. This second activity focuses on what we call learning technologies and methodologies. So here again, it could be blended courses, face-to-face, online, that we really leave up to you. But really the idea is we have now more and more new learning technologies, VR, augmented reality, but also learning methodologies such as, you know, gamification, challenge-based learning. It's more detailed in the call text. But what we want is to really test in practice these new learning methodologies and technologies, applied, of course, to urban mobility content, urban mobility audiences, and in a way that really improves the impact of learning. So this is a great call to test any new technology or methodology that you're either thinking about or that you just are working on in the very recent months or years, and to put it in practice in an urban mobility environment. I didn't really talk about the KPIs. Again, they're detailed in the call, but so as Joel explained, in each of these activities, we need a minimum of a certain number of participants finishing the course. That means taking more than 80% of the course, and the assessments that need to be taken to make sure that all the learning has been properly absorbed. And in this case, a minimum of 25 people that at least register to the course and take part to some of the course, but maybe not all of it, and maybe don't finish all of the assessment. So each activity has specific KPIs in that respect. Maybe, yeah, moving to the next slide. So activity number 3, here we really want to, the idea here is to build courses that leverage trade fairs and conferences. So this was one idea that came when discussing this with our community on our website. There are a lot and there's a great opportunity when you have these conferences and trade fairs to have gatherings of urban mobility specialists, companies, people showcasing some really interesting stuff. So we want to try and look into making courses that somehow leverage these conferences, either by leveraging the content and the networking opportunities provided by these conferences, or in some other way, leveraging the knowledge generated by the course so that it can be showcased in the conferences. This can go both ways, and maybe even other win-win solutions could be thought about. But the idea is to build or co-build a training course that could be really impactful and useful, leveraging everything that could be leveraged from an existing conference. You, of course, know of Tomorrow Mobility, which is one of the leading conferences that EIT is driving, but it could be on any other conference that you're already working on and that you think could be leveraged. Ideally, we want both to benefit one from the other. A conference could be made much more interesting and powerful with this sort of course or courses, in the same way as, of course, the course should leverage the fact that it's connected to the conference. So this is what we want to work on. A minimum of 15 people finishing the course, and of course a slightly a higher number, 50, of people registering the course, because if you connect it with a conference, I think we think this is a much it's an area where we can get more people involved in one way or in another. Next slide. So then the fourth activity relates to community engagement. The idea here is you actually have within urban mobility a lot of different communities. So this could be specific people, working in specific activities within cities. But then this is a community of people, I don't know, transport planners. Well, if each city has 1 or 2 transport planners, but then you have, of course, a community of transport planners if you take most of the bigger cities around Europe. But you could also have another community, which is, a group that we want to empower, such as women. We could have different kinds of communities, different kind of leadership roles that form a community. So really that's up to you to decide, but we want to use this call as an opportunity to empower a specific community and to engage with this community to really help this community to become better at whatever challenges they need to tackle. So really it's about understanding the specific challenges of this community and empowering this community, not so much at the local level, but bringing it more at a pan-European level, where we can bring different people from different regions, different countries, different cities, or even different companies, but we bring in these communities and we empower them to make mobility more efficient. So here you have the KPIs. I don't want to get too much into them. We also have about 4,000 impressions as we're talking about sort of big communities. So I'm happy to answer more questions on this if needed. And finally, the last activity is really about breaking the silos. So here we're not talking about so much one community, but connecting people from different communities and allowing these different people to benefit from each other. So this can be within, the life cycle of a specific service, or it can be within a specific challenge that different communities need to overcome together. So really, we're looking at, a specific area of urban mobility at a systemic level. We identify the different stakeholders and we bring them together so that we can really help them overcome specific challenges together. And behind that, there's really the strong need, as we identified, to empower people to network. And as you know, urban mobility in many cases requires different people from different organizations to come together, and there's a need for this networking to happen. But in many cases, even the people need to be trained to network or to be shown how they can improve their networking capabilities. So anything which is related to this would be very much relevant to the call regarding the KPIs, 20 finishing the course and 80 registering. And finally, I wanted to talk to you about some, let's say, some specifications or requirements that are important for all of these activities. So really any of the proposals that you present to us within the Competence Hub would have to include this. So I already talked about it. The idea is to significantly co-fund the development and the design of these courses, and to have each of these courses be repeated over several years in several cohorts or edition. But you don't get, or you get very limited additional funding from year 2 onwards. So we want the model to be able to be sustainable and viable insofar as once you make the most of the funding received in year 1, then the course can continue and become viable. And on top of that, part of the profits generated by the course during the first and obviously the following years should come back to EIT Urban Mobility. So in that sense, we help build a cake together, and we should get part of it in the following years so that we get a significant part of what we invested back. It's also important for us to start and get an idea of the big picture, right? Because urban mobility is changing so much, and so much new things are happening that anything in your courses or in the proposals that you make that will help both the learners, but also the teachers and the entire community to get a better understanding of this new big picture and these new jobs and these new needs that we need to tackle. This is something you should highlight, because it's something that we're very much looking into and that we want to promote. The courses here, we're talking about, professional training. They should be very practical. They should be very focused on, professional impact, and they should be tailored to specific professional realities. We want to go deep in that part. So we don't want any generic courses, marketing 101 applied to urban mobility. We want something for a specific audience to help them overcome specific challenges. Of course, there's a lot that we already did over the last 2 years. especially when it comes to the web TV and the asynchronous learning courses. We have about 30 of them. So anything that you can leverage over the existing learning courses and content, this is something that we really want, and that you should, of course, highlight in your proposal, because it's something that's important for us. Then of course, two challenges that we are facing on a daily basis, but that any solution that you could bring would also help. Most of what we do is still in English, though we're looking at finding ways to subtitle and maybe even have voiceover. We do not want any online content to be sort of replicated in different languages, because then in terms of management of this content, it becomes very complex. But we're very keen on exploring solutions that would allow us to deliver content in other languages than in English without having to replicate the course. So as I said, voiceover, subtitling, having a course in multilingual features, using the multilingual features of Google, for example. We really want to make our courses available for people that are non-fluent in English, but in a way that doesn't account for duplication and replication. And finally, of course, for us, you know, the gender perspective is important, both in terms of, you know, having a balanced group of learners, a balanced group of experts. When we have case studies, when we have people that are interviewed, we should think about gender balance each time we do that. And that's it, I think, on my side. I'll be happy to take your questions at the end of the session if needed.
Thank you, Gautam, and thank you, Daniela. I'm gonna present now the RIS education call, which is a separate call from the Academy. And my name is Katarzyna Janusz, and I'm the RIS education officer. So if you look at the main features of the call, they're quite similar to the Academy call. So the timeline is exactly the same. And also the project duration, we expect 12 months, but there is a possibility to extend if you wish to, and if you state the motivation and the plan. The total budget is approximately up to 800,000 euros, and we plan to select up to 6 proposals with a budget of 100,000 euros on average. And the co-funding level is the same as for the academic call, and as for the financial sustainability, it is not required in this call, but it's something that is encouraged. And as for the consortia, since this is the RIS education call, we require 2 partners from two countries minimum, and one of them is minimum from the RIS country. And the evaluation criteria are exactly the same as Daniela has presented before, so I will not repeat myself here. Thank you. And as for the scope and the target group, so what kind of activities are we going to fund? So basically activities that support the overall RIS strategy that you can find more about it on our website. And the proposals that basically will offer high quality education for a large audience and market with a possibility to scale up in different geographical regions. And we will fund different sorts of activities. So for example, new activities, so it's like pilots that have a potential for scaling up, as I mentioned before. Or also we will look for successful activities that can be leveraged and scale up already. And as well, we are looking for synergies with other European activities like Horizon Europe and Pan-European networks. And we strongly encourage in the proposals the collaboration between the RIS and non-RIS education system to create more of the integration. And as well, we would like that the proposals include new RIS stakeholders so that we expand our network and we also expand our impact and reach with our activities. And when you look at the target groups of RIS education activities, it's actually quite broad. So we target students and professionals, professors, mentors, trainers, and more broadly, educational organizations and ecosystems as well. And next slide, please. So we are focusing in this call on 3 types of activities, basically, and your proposals should address at least 2 of these 3 types of activities. So the first one is the RIS capacity building, and the idea here is to create activities that will increase the entrepreneurial and innovation capacity in the RIS countries And they will also foster the knowledge transfer from the universities to industry to leverage on the knowledge that is created in the universities to upskill, but also to generate the financial sustainability. And we support activities such as lifelong learning, startup supporting activities, student startup incubation, and coaching. And the second area of activity is the awareness raising of EIT urban mobility education activities. So here, basically, the idea is to attract the RIS students into academy and master school activities, and to also encourage the students and to find participants to join the EIT label master programs of EIT urban mobility. And here we encourage the concepts such as teach the teacher, a student education program or a course, and ideally they fit into the existing curricula of the master school. And finally, the RIS education and training activities. So this is quite a broad category. So we encourage all sorts of activities, training and education activities with a focus on innovation, entrepreneurship, as well as urban mobility. And these activities, they should primarily, of course, target the RIS countries and the RIS population, but they can also be based on the non-RIS concepts. So there is this kind of knowledge transfer from non-RIS to RIS, yes. And no, go back, please. Yes, so we will we support here blended or online courses, but we also kind of favor the customization of already existing courses to local needs. So, for example, can be translations, can be adapting existing successful courses to local needs through, for example, updating case studies and so on. So this is one of the focus areas. Next one, please. And in each of these activity topics, there are some cross-cutting considerations that we would like to see in every proposal. So what was already mentioned before a few times is the scaling up of replication. So all the activities should have a possibility to be scaled up and to be also replicated in other geographical contexts. We strongly encourage gender mainstreaming. That's something that Gautam already talked about as well in the design and implementation of the courses. We would like to see the integration of the knowledge triangle broadly understood. So can be industry, can be municipalities, universities, and so on. And since we work in RIS a lot with our RIS hubs, we also support the cross-hub collaboration in building the consortia. And finally, the proposals should respond basically to the RIS-specific needs of each country that is participating in the call, in the consortium. And the last slide, so these are the KPI requirements. So we have the list of mandatory and the non-mandatory KPIs, and I think that's something you can check more specifically in a call. So that's it from my side. If you have questions, I will be happy to answer them later. Thank you.
Thank you, Kasia. Thank you, Gautam, Benjamin, and Joel. The last slide before we start the Q&A is on the eligibility and evaluation process. So basically, once the call period finishes, we'll start checking the eligibility of the proposals. And how is the proposal eligible? A proposal is eligible if it is submitted on time, if all the mandatory fields are completed and submitted in Plaza in English. A proposal is eligible if the minimum co-funding requirements are addressed, if the minimum KPI requirements are also addressed, and if the consortia composition meets the criteria requirements. So minimum of 2 partners from 2 different countries. As for RIS, one of the partners needs to be from a RIS country. When the proposal is deemed eligible, we start the evaluation. So the evaluation is done in one step, and we target 4 specific items. You can see them there. So the strategic fit, what is a strategic fit? It means the proposal contribution to our EIT, the proposal contributes towards our EIT urban mobility specific education strategic objectives. That is reflected in the EIT urban mobility strategic agenda, but also on the specific requirements under which the proposal applied for in the call, and the impact of the proposal is in line with those minimum requirements in terms of KPIs, financial sustainability, and output. the excellence and novelty of the proposal in terms of the coherence and logic of the intervention, the novelty of the idea and whether that meets specific unmet needs, the impact, and when we talk about impact, we talk about social, economic, financial, and the overall sustainability of the intervention, and that is reflected in terms of whether that strengthens the competitiveness, and the growth, and the quality and efficiency of the implementation, assessed in terms of the coherence of the work plan, the resources allocated, but also the risk management structures and the relevance of the consortia. So in broad terms, this is the evaluation. You'll find the specific evaluation criteria under the calls. It's pretty much the same for both calls, for the academic call, for RIS education call as well. We'll have a specific session on evaluation and also on proposal submission, so Plaza training with a live Plaza demo tomorrow at 11 a.m. So if you haven't registered but you are interested to attend, please do so. We'll provide support to application submission. So you can also join that session if you wish so. With that said, we move on to the Q&A. We have already a few questions in the chat and Q&A chat, but please do submit your questions now and we'll aim to address those.
So we have so far two questions in the chat. But first of all, I would like to thank you all for the presentation. Daniela, and Joel and Benjamin, Gautam and Kasia. And I think there's a lot of interesting stuff here, and I hope that you find that as well. As you also see, it is slightly different from maybe other calls. What we try to do is gradually grow and develop the academy. So we hope that all of the activities that our proposals sent in, that many of them can then continue the courses and activities over the coming years as being part of the academy. Coming back to the questions, we have one first question here from Alok. Can the co-funding come in form of manpower contribution? Yes, is the answer. You need to follow the rules for that, how to report this, and it's also cost-based, but there are the quick answer is yes. And from Roger, there is a question that was mentioned that we plan to run 2 calls per year. That is still the plan, but this is a quite challenging year, 22 for us, due to the shift from Horizon 2020 to Horizon Europe. So we have not yet taken a decision whether there will be a second call this fall. It's still the ambition, but we need to look into if it's still doable. But over time, we plan to have 2 calls a year. And the reason for that is that we will have one that will more cover the calendar year and one more the academic year, which makes sense, especially for activities related to the master school. So that is still the ambition, but we'll come back to you regarding whether that will be decided. And then we have a new one. Can a partner from RIS country participate in both calls? Yes, absolutely. Partners from RIS countries are never excluded, so in any way. So there is no, it's actually even encouraged that we have RIS participants in all the academy segments. So that's absolutely the case. Do we have any other questions? I see that we are now 1 minute past 3, so maybe people are about to leave. But if we have any additional last question, doesn't seem so. So if not, I would just like to thank you. Oh, there is one from Pavlina. 2 questions. Is it mandatory to have a core partner in the proposal? It is not mandatory to have a core partner in a proposal. And it says 2 questions, but I only see 1. Do you have a second question, Pavlina? Maybe she's typing. Yeah, here we go. The second one. Is it possible to have 2 proposals by the same partner? Yes, you can have as many proposals as you like. So there is no limitation in that respect, that you can only send in 1 proposal. So you can send in through the different segments, but also you can have more than 1 proposal in a segment, or even an area within segment. So there is no limitation in that respect. So that's fine. We have another one here. Will the presentation be sent via email or accessible over the website? We will make the recording of this info session available to you. I'm not sure how we make the slides, but you will see the slides in the recording. I don't think we have a problem sharing the slides.
No, it will, sorry, Martin, to jump in, it will be made available in our website where we have the information about the call.
Okay, good, thank you. That seems to be the last question. So thank you all for joining us today. And then we have the other session on more the practical details tomorrow. Hope that you can join there as well. It's important that we get all the kind of nitty-gritty details right. So, and for those of you that have worked with us before, you know that that's doable, but it's sometimes a bit of a struggle. And for those of you that never worked with a KIC or us before, please pay attention to this, because there are a number of things that you need to get right, so we get it into the system in the correct way, and what you need to submit together with the proposal, etc. So please join that. But otherwise, thank you all for joining today, and good luck with the proposals. And also you can reach out to our innovation hubs for support regarding the proposals as well. We are, however, centrally a bit limited in having views on the proposals, because we are the one doing the selection later on. So that has to be through the innovation hubs mainly. I think that's all for now. Daniela, or do we have something else that we should include, or?
We covered all. My colleague Claudia just sent the link for the session tomorrow in the chat. So if you haven't registered and are keen to do it, you can do it through that link. But yes, if you have any questions about the call, please feel free to reach out to this email, the academy call at untiltedmobility.eu, or to any of my colleagues who presented yesterday if you have questions specifically about one of the segments.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
And goodbye.